Tech game coming up. Crucial game, and my generation has been lucky enough to win 7 in a row recently, but back in the 50s it wasn't necessarily the same story.
Well, that was Bobby Dodd's heyday.
Mm-hmm.
That was he had a great record at Tech, and that was his heyday in the 50s. And it happened to be Wallace Butts was in the early 50s. Wallace Butts had really put us on the map, you know. Put us in our first bowl game in 1941. The 41 team beat, I guess it was Texas Christian in the Orange Bowl. And the next year we went to the Rose Bowl, New Year's Day '43, and Georgia Tech went to the Rose Bowl before we did. Football didn't become the biggest collegiate sport until after World War I. Baseball was the biggest sport.
Mm-hmm.
And but after World War I, everybody wanted to go to the Rose Bowl. If you got invited to the Rose Bowl and won, you'd be the national champion. And Alabama was the first Southeastern Conference team, well, it was Southern Conference, had to go. And we had a great team called the Dream and Wonder Team in 1927. Won all the games. Georgia Tech had a pretty good team, but they upset us 12-0 in Atlanta on Grant Field in the last game and kept us from going to the Rose Bowl. It was a bitter pill for the Georgia people.
Mm-hmm.
And we had quite a rivalry that started due to a baseball series. I'll tell you about that. But Georgia people claimed that Georgia Tech at night would wet down the field a few nights before they played us. We played in the daytime, but that night they would secretly wet down the field. They wanted it to be a very wet field. A wet field is an equalizer, you know,
right,
like rain. And they beat us, and the Georgia people were really bitter about it. Knocked us out of the Rose Bowl. They said we cheated us. That's what the Georgia people said. But Tech had a good team. They went to the Rose Bowl the next year.
Mm-hmm.
But the bitterness in the Georgia Tech series really began in 1919. Baseball was a big sport, and we played them 2 games in Atlanta and 2 games in Athens, and we won all 4 games. And baseball was a big thing, and when Georgia had a baseball game, the merchants would close the stores at noon downtown Athens because they wasn't even going to be going in the store. They'd go into the game.
Right.
And the students and band would form in front of the arch, and they would parade down to the field. Well, in World War I, Georgia boys, we didn't have a team. Georgia boys enlisted in the Army and fought. Georgia Tech had some kind of military or Navy outfit, and they had a team. They didn't go to the war. So in this float going down to the stadium, I mean the baseball field, Old Sanford Field, they had a float. On one float it said, the Golden Tornado during World War I, and it had them in their football uniforms and a blonde sitting in their lap and they're drinking and all like that. Georgia, the Golden Tornado in World War I. And then on the next one, it had the Georgia boys in Army uniforms, Georgia in World War I, and the Argonne Forest fighting for their country, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that made the Georgia Tech faculty people there so damn mad, they said, we ain't playing them anymore. So they broke off relations in athletics for several years. But around 1925, the governor of the state of Georgia, Clifford Walker, he was a Georgia alumnus, he called the presidents of Tech and Georgia into his office at the state capitol, and he says, enough of this nonsense. Georgia and Tech not having athletic relations. I want you to resume athletic relations immediately. And they did.